Okay. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing in Sefer Chofetz Chaim, Yomi, Klal, Vav, Halacha, Hey, and Halacha, Vav. V'yata nachzor l'inyanenu hanal. Let's go back to the above mentioned topic. The Masha Kasavnu b'Sif Beis, that which we wrote in Sif Beis. That not only is an Isser Daraisa to believe Lashon Hara, it's an Isser Daraisa to listen to Lashon Hara. Da'afilu shmi'as Lashon Hara Isser Torah. Even listening to Lashon Hara is an Isser Daraisa. Hainu leilech v'lashmaya. That is to go and to listen. The Isser Daraisa of listening to Lashon Hara is to go and to listen. Avalam yashav b'chavuras hanoshim shenaskabtu inyan ma. But if you're sitting among a group of people that gathered for whatever reason, v'hischilo l'daber dvar masurim, they were talking divrei Torah, they were talking divrei chachma, and all of a sudden they started speaking Lashon Hara. V'hischilo l'daber dvar masurim v'u'meshayer shedivrei toichachta lo ya'ilu lahem uma, and you assessed that your rebuke will not help at all. It depends on the following. If you could leave, like the Gra. One time the Gra realized he was in a compromised situation, he jumped out the window. So if you could leave, so you leave, you walk out. People are going to wonder, where are you going? I don't know, tell them, gotta go. I have a meeting. Who you have a meeting with? You have a meeting, let's say, with the Yetzer Tov, as opposed to the Malach HaMaves. You'd rather not meet with, let's say, the Satan. So you say, I gotta go, I have an important meeting. Or another option, you could put your finger in your ears. All of a sudden, they said, Divrei Torah. What we just did was Divrei Torah. But if you would only have heard what the rabbi spoke about last night, then that wasn't. By the way, this week's parsha, it names one of the descendants of the Shvatim, Etzboin. Why? The Chaim HaKadosh says it's to teach, if you're in a compromised situation, then you put your fingers in your ear. So those are the two good options. Mitzvah rabbahu oisa b'zeh. You're doing a great mitzvah. K'maisha amru Chazal b'ksubas. Like Chazal say in Ksubas. You'll say, what do you mean? But people are going to say that I'm being so judgmental. Say, it's irrelevant what people say. All you have to worry about is what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to do. And the two best options are either leave or put your finger in your ear. Kamay sha'amru Chazal b'ksubas. Avalam I efshar lo lishama mimasibasim. If you cannot leave, why can't you leave? They lock the door. You can't leave. So they lock the door with a bolt, and there's a security guard at the door, and there's no way to leave. And you evaluate that the eitzah, putting your finger in your ear, is very difficult, because they're going to mock you. They say, what's wrong with this guy? He's putting his finger in his ear. If you assess you're not going to put your finger in your ear, and you can't leave, then you need to do the following 5 things. That's why it makes life so much easier if you develop the great skill of putting your finger in your ear. Now, you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to put my finger in your ear. The first thing you need to do, you have to practice, because not every finger fits in your ear. So you need to identify which one of my 5 fingers can fit in my ear. You'll say that's not hygienic. Right now, that you're right. Maybe it's not a good thing. Most doctors would say, don't put your finger in your ear. But let me tell you something. Putting your finger in your ear is a lot better than going to Gehenna. Because Gehenna is also not hygienic. By the way, it's worse than not hygienic. It's also very hot. So as maybe uncouth as it might seem to put your finger in your ear, worse than that is going to the purgatory. That should be avoided at all costs. It's always a good idea to avoid the purgatory. That should always be a consideration. Anyway, if you've determined you're not going to be able to leave and you won't be able to put your finger in your ear, then al kopanim yireh az never, at the very least, you should see to it, lezares es atzmai, to energize yourself, ulahamid al nafshay be'is tzara kazu, and to stand up. And this eis tzara, you hear what's going on? If you're among people and they're speaking Lashon Hara, it's an eis tzara. So what do you need to do? V'lilchai milchemes Hashem im Yitzray. You need to wage the war of God against the Yetzer Hara, kedei shelo yikasha al kapanim isur daraisa, so you don't stumble in a biblical isur shel shmias v'kabbalas Lashon Hara, of listening to and accepting Lashon Hara. V'lazet sarach shloisha pratim sheizar b'hen ma'od. And therefore you need to fulfill, I said 3 conditions to be very careful. And you will save yourself the Isser Dairaisa of listening to Lashon Hara. Number 1, because again, you're there and your eardrums are hearing words of Lashon Hara. So what are you going to do? You weren't able to jump out the window. Let's say it's the 5th story. So you can't jump out the window. And the fingers in the ear, let's say you're not able to do that because you just put paint on your fingers. So you're going to get paint in your ear. So those 2 eitzos are not available right now. So what should you do? Do the following 3 things. Number 1, yachlet benavshe beheskem gomor shaloi lahamin lahadivrei gnushim sam lachavreim. You definitively decide with absolute conviction that you're not going to believe what they're saying. Number 2, lo yanichale b'shmias sipurei ma'aseh ma'ila. You should not be pleased with it. In other words, let's say they're talking about somebody that you never wanted to say a bad word about, but if only you heard other people saying, you would be really enjoying that conversation. No, you need to make it that you're getting no enjoyment from their conversation. And number 3, gam yamid al atzmai shloi laharois. You need to stand up for your soul, not to show lifnei hamasaprim, before the speakers, shum tnua, any movement, sheyera mimena, that they will see from it, shu maskim l'devrayim, that you consent with their words. Don't smile, don't nod. You need to look, practice, and if you're going to have a hard time with Shas Maisa, practice looking like a goylam. Like you're blank-faced, like you haven't eaten in a week, and at the very least, practice looking like a rock. Ach yeshev ke'even doimim. Sit there like an inanimate rock. It's a very important skill in life, to be able to look like an inanimate rock. Don't smirk. Don't smirk. Don't even allow the right side of your mouth, those muscles might just instinctively make a little bit of a movement to indicate your pleasure in being able to badmouth, listening to bad. No, don't even allow the muscles on the right side of the mouth to move even minimally. But what would better, if you could put on an angry face to show you would have liked to jump out the window. But what can you do? It's the 5th story. You would have liked to put your finger in your ear, but you have thorns that have been attached to the edges of your fingers. You're not able to do that at this moment. Then at least show a angry face, she'avinu imenu, so that the people will recognize that you do not agree, you do not approve of their nonsense. That is certainly preferable. Sivav. When are we saying that it would be okay if you decide you're not going to believe it, and you decide you're not going to get pleasure, and you don't assist? That's if at the time you sat down, they were not saying anything wrong. And you're not able to leave. But at the time you sat down, they already began their conversation, and now you say, I'm stuck, so I'm going to make an angry face. You're over an Isser Da'iraisa for being there. Or you could have jumped out the window, because it's only the 1st story. It might be a little uncomfortable to open up the window and to lift up one leg and sort of maneuver yourself out the window. That might be a little uncomfortable. Or let's say the thorns on your finger, that I don't know how they got there. They're not that sharp. It's not going to cause any injury to your inner eardrum. And you just decide, no, I don't want to do it. No. If you could leave, and you're being lazy, or you already know what these guys are up to. You know their character. Their desire is always to disparage their friends. And you go and you sit among them, hoping that maybe they're going to say divrei Torah. Even if you don't assist them, and you're not happy about what they said, you're considered a sinner. You violate the words Chazal. The Chazal commanded to distance yourself. Meaning, if you're in a shul and you see in the corner there are three guys, and you know 75% of the time what they're talking about, don't go there and then you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be stuck. You go there, you're a sinner. And certainly, you violate the words of Chazal that they commanded to distance yourself from hearing improper things. Certainly, if you go there because you want to overhear what they're talking about, you just want to know that they're talking about Ploini, and then you're going to close your ears. Because even though you don't know what they're going to say, but if they're talking about that guy, who you would never talk about, but it would just give you pleasure to know that they're, so to speak, doing the dirty work for you, Gadol avonim minasai, your sin is too great to bear. You will be engraved upstairs, b'sefer hazachronos, in the book of remembrance, b'shem ish rasha. You will be called a wicked person. Uba Lashon Harah. Even though you didn't say one word, you just walked there. Like we find in the Perkei of Rabbi Glatstein in the ethical will of Rabbi Glatstein, who commanded his son Horkinus, don't sit among groups who speak bad about their friend, because when the words go up, it's written in a book. Anyone who's standing there, nechtavim b'shem chaburas resha, is written as a congregation of wicked people, ubal lashon hara. I think this must be the third time that the Chofetz Chaim quotes this Perkei de Rabbi Eliezer so far. He brought it in the Psicha a number of times. Therefore, a person has to distance himself very much from such a bad chabura. So, for example, if, let's say you see a bunch of people, and you're not sure if, your citizen papers are in order. And in this group are, let's say, people who they quickly expel foreigners from the country. It is unlikely you're going to go and sit down among them. You probably would find a different place to go. As far away as you would want to go from those people who might try to expel you from your country, you need to distance yourself from Balei Lashon Hara. Rabbi, say have a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov. Recording